Hello and welcome to another episode of Technology in the Arts, which is already getting off to a bad start. My name is Brian Kelley,
And I'm John Lemesney.
and we are here to explore the connections between technology and art. And tonight, hopefully, if he's still around, we have a special guest joining us, my friend, singer-songwriter Christian Beach, whose cover of Yoko Ono's Silver Horse will be included on an upcoming Yoko Ono tribute album being released by Main Man Records. Christian is also readying some new music of his own, so we'll talk to him about that as well. And we'll get to Christian in a moment, but first, John, it's good to see you again. How are you doing?
I've been doing well, Brian. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for asking. What you been up to lately?
Just tonight, we had part 2 of a WordPress course in Princeton Public Library, and a surprise to me as to anybody, everybody showed up for the second week. I had done this in the past where we did not have people, as many people show up the second week as did the first, and I was really heartened to have all these people show up. And tomorrow, my Media and Technology for Organizations class continues. And just last week, we focused on Robert Scoble and his keynote to the Next Web in Europe in 2013, in which he explained with some detail his vision for the next paradigm of computing, which is the age of context. And the age of context essentially talks about the advent and realization of mobile computing in wearable form. It talks about big data, social data, and the collection of data in an automated way in order to inform us not only of who we are ourselves, but also who we are collectively. In other words, right now, in order to get some sense of what people believe or what people are, we have to do a survey. And sometimes the survey is very flawed because it relies on somebody responding in a truthful way and being vigilant about their response. You know, if you ask somebody how much sugar they eat in a day, that's a lot of work to find that out, and it's a lot of work to get somebody to be truthful about it. Whereas with this idea of the age of context, there will just be sensors, for example, that track all that. And so it's a very exciting time, and I was excited to talk to my students about it. And I only have a few students who have responded so far, but as always, they're very insightful about the way that they think that this can be applied in business. And one of the questions I asked in the weekly post was, how do you think that Scoble's sense of the age of context will have an impact on business? And one of the responses I got so far was that, for example, you know, the question of where somebody is at a given time or a time clock sort of goes away because somebody has a sensor and that sensor just gets turned on, and the atmosphere, the environment is aware of them. You know, so for example, when I was at Princeton University and I was all over campus, one of my questions from my boss was very often, where have you been? You know, and I would have to explain to some degree. But meanwhile, like, given the tools that I have right now, I could have just shown her a chart. I could have shown her the path that I took. I could have shown her, you know, where I was in any given time. And that's an exciting thing for somebody who is a legitimate, hardworking individual. It's a nightmare for somebody who slacks.
Right.
So that's what's going on right now. How about you?
Well, just wanted to, I can't believe I haven't talked about this here yet. I mean, it's not technically, technology in the arts, but as you know, we explained that we kind of.
Athleticism is an art.
Yes. So I'm not much of a runner, but I have run in some 5Ks over the years, and this year actually I've run in 3. which is high. I've never done more than one, I think, but I've done 3 this year, and I signed up a while back for the Trenton, New Jersey 10K race. It's the Trenton Half Marathon, but they also have a 10K that day, and that's on November 9th, 2013. And I actually completed 2 10K distance runs last week, and you can follow my progress on my personal blog at bktandem.wordpress.com, and you can look for the back-end training updates, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Incidentally, speaking again of this idea of the age of context, do you track your runs with any automated methodology?
Nike Plus.
Oh,
or
you use Nike Plus.
Nike Running, whatever it's called now.
And like you get charts and all that?
Yeah, it gives you like a heat map. It gives you your pace, and it gives you calories burned, and it tracks your times.
And why do you run?
I started running back maybe 2006. I never used to really run. I was a bicyclist. I rode my bike every summer. Growing up the shore, I used to ride, from my house to the beach and back. It was like a 20-mile ride, and I used to do that maybe 2 or 3 times a week during the summer, when school was out, and at least my junior and senior years. And I used to ride pretty regularly, and then my bike broke, and I was living near a school that had a track that was empty a lot of times. It was a middle school, so there wasn't really like a track team or any track meets going on there. So I was like, oh, I'll go out there and run. And I, started running 1 mile and 2 miles, and then it's like, okay, 5K is 3.1 miles. I'll run a 5K distance and see what happens. And then I did my first 5K, and I guess September or October of that year, 2006. And then I thought I would be doing like a few a year, and just stopped. I was still running every now and then, but I wasn't doing really training for it like I was. And last year I picked it up again and ran the Phillies 5K in South Philadelphia, and I did that again this year. Also did the Lakewood Blue Claws.
I thought they had that in Delaware.
The Phillies 5K is at Citizens Bank Park in South.
No, I'm pretty sure it's in southern Delaware.
No. Anyway, and I did the Lakewood Blue Claws 5K, and I did a 5K at Mercer County Community College, which was proceeds were going to support victims of the Boston Marathon bombing. So did 3 of those, and then I saw the ads for the Trenton half marathon and 10K. I'm like, I'm not ready for a half marathon yet, but I can do 6.2 miles. And right after I signed up, I did a run a few months ago, and finished in a little over an hour. And my 5K time is about a half hour, so it translated well. So I was like, I can do this. I mean, it's not great. Like I said, I'm not really a runner, but if I can finish under an hour, even if it's 59 minutes 59 seconds, I'll be happy. But
there's kind of a cliched pin that shows up on Pinterest all the time that says something to the effect of, you're running laps around all the people who are still sitting on the couch.
All right.
There's something beautiful in getting up, and honestly, I have tried to run and have not had a lot of success with it. I've really stayed to walking. I walk quite a bit. There was a time, of course, when I was walking over 5 miles a day. If I didn't make my 5 miles, I was devastated. But in maintenance, I haven't really maintained that. But running is like another whole world, There's a couple great apps based on the idea of couch to 5K.
Yeah, and I know there's programs. I've had a guest on my Tandem with the Random podcast is doing that. So he's tweeted about it. So yeah. Anyway, look for the link for my updates on my blog. Secondly, real quick, I just wanted to let everybody know, and actually it's fully funded now, but Australian singer-songwriter Kate Miller-Heidke, who I'm a big fan of, has left Sony to go independent. As she says in her Pledge Music video, indie with a capital I. And she was raising funds for a new album, like I said. In 3 days, she reached her goal. And according to her, she's the fastest Australian to ever successfully fund a music project. So, but I'll put a link to that if you want to see. And what's kind of cool is that it's almost like whatever you pledge for her new album, you're actually getting 2 albums for the price of that pledge, because as soon as you pledge, she sends a link to you receive a link to download album of live tracks from a Heavenly Sounds tour that she did, which was at churches and cathedrals in 5 Australian cities. She did early in the summer with her husband and collaborator Keir Nuttall. So I think you can still pledge, even though it's reached its goal. So if you want to see what gifts are, pledge gifts are available, you should check out the link in the show notes. And she's awesome though. She's great. I mean, we get into I'll tweet something about her, and like almost 9 times out of 10 she'll tweet back or favorite it or reply. She's really cool with the social media stuff, and she's really fantastic artist, and she's very funny. The training video, the Pledge Music video is very funny, and she talks about how crowdfunding, it's what made everybody mad at Amanda Palmer, and then she's like, I want to be Amanda Palmer. So look for that in the show notes, and if you are like me, and you are an American fan of the great British science fiction program Doctor Who, and especially if you live on the U.S. East Coast, please check out the Change.org petition to have the top of the Empire State Building go TARDIS blue on November 23rd to mark the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. And you can follow the link in the show notes to show your support. And
have you looked into, or do you know anything about the way that they color the Empire State Building?
It's just lights, right?
Well, it's lights, but I'm saying I think it would be interesting, especially for this show, to maybe find out, who manages that, how decisions are made. Like, I bet you we could score that interview.
Actually, the person who is doing the Doctor Who petition mentioned the entity that you send requests to. So I will I'll check back at that link.
Like, I'd be interested to know what kind of lights they use, if they're LEDs or like if they're compact fluorescent. I doubt that, but I'm saying like how those have to be managed, right? It's like they must have some RGB capability, and I wonder if like they pay attention to Pantone. I wonder if they pay attention to hexadecimal. Like I would love to find out like how they manage the color on the building.
Good questions. So all right, I'll check into that. I'll see where that email, I think it was an email address, or maybe it was a website that he posted. I'll see if there's any information there.
Maybe we could do like a Joseph K. style like interview too. We could go and maybe like visit. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, Christian's waiting, so let's get to our guest tonight.
Oh, it's only half past,
Yeah, singer-songwriter Christian Beach will be joining the Hangout, and I have been emailing him as this show has been progressing, so he is standing by. Just to give you some background, I was introduced to Christian through a mutual friend during our teenage years. We were living on opposite sides of the same town, so we attended different high schools. We didn't really know each other until this person introduced us. So the three of us started working on music together, and then that person left, and it was just me and Christian, and then we lost track of each other for a while. We got back in touch and got into synthesizers and samplers and drum machines, and then we got hooked up with a rapper from Asbury Park, and we started doing this weird, like, Run DMC meets Depeche Mode type thing. And then we started getting into Nine Inch Nails and Front 242, Ministry, bands of that nature, and we started integrating elements of that into what we were doing. But we were too young to really execute all that properly, so we were a little bit ahead of our times, because that actually, started happening later, in the 90s. So we were doing that, right at the very early stages of the 90s, in like 1990 or so. But we just didn't know any better at the time. Anyway, I left the group. Christian went on to form bands like Slave of Id, Artists That Kill, Ton of Bricks, all of which received a bit of airplay at radio stations located at the Jersey Shore. And then from about 2000 to 2004, we dropped out of touch again. And then I discovered his MySpace page and his blog. I reconnected with him, and now we've been, friends again ever since. And he's invited me to play on some recordings and some live shows. He released his first solo CD titled Christian Beach in 2009, and it was ranked 67th by music journalist Gary Ween on his list of the 100 best albums released by New Jersey artists from 2001 to 2010 in Gary's book, Are You Listening? Now Christian is preparing his long-awaited follow-up, and we'll be talking to him about that, as well as some more immediate news that includes a cover of Yoko Ono's Silver Horse and an event surrounding that. So let's see if I can get Christian into our hangout here. Oh, here he is.
Okay, wow.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
What's up?
No, I'm not used to this newfangled technology here. Apparently, I had
That's okay. Neither
open.
are we. Well, neither am I. John is Mr. Technology. He's basically a cyborg.
Hey, Christian, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. It's been a while. I don't think we've actually met.
I don't think we've met either. That is crazy, actually.
Now, it just seems like it, because I'm always talking about John with Christian and Christian with John, so it's... So, Christian, thank you for being here. Sorry about the delay.
No problem.
Snafus.
No problem. Apparently, when I kept on clicking the join to join the video call, and I must have had about 5 or 6 windows open that I had to click out of first before I joined the call. I'm like, what is going on here? So I guess every time I attempted to join, because you didn't send me the meeting, I just, I had a bunch of windows that had to be closed out first before. So that was the call.
Oh, okay. Okay, because you tried to join before. Okay. Yep. Okay. Cool.
I'm sure that's not interesting to anybody. So.
Well, it's funny because we live in this thing and we're still confused by it. It's like it should be more straightforward than it is. But
yeah, like I mentioned to Christian in the email. I mean, going on air. I was complaining how Google changed the toolbox, the Hangouts toolbox, and John was like, "No, they didn't change it. They didn't change." It's like, "Oh yeah, they did change it." So,
yeah, what do you want for a free tool?
Exactly.
Unless you want to pay the premium price.
Yeah, we're at the whims.
You're stuck with this, and you have to try to find your way around, I guess.
Honestly, I mean, one of the things I'm going to talk about later is the idea of the premium priced products and how they basically offer exactly the same thing. It's surprising, what we get for free in this tool, and it still is confusing in the other tools, but there's really no argument against free.
Definitely not. I guess you just don't get the support. I mean, that's the only, but the premium, I would imagine they give you some kind of support for it in case you run into a problem. Whereas the the free tool, it's like, you're on your own. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
No skin off our back.
Oh, wait, that cue one of your songs. Figure it out.
There you go. There you go. Nice segue. I'm not going to play that, but
yeah, no.
If I was to play that, that would be a great segue. But
yes. And if Google would allow us to put in some music into we could have did a little sprinkling of it. But anyway, so we covered your a little bit of your musical past in the lead-in. So why don't we start out by you sharing with our viewers and our podcast listeners how you made the transition from the band environment to solo singer-songwriter and some of your influences in what you're doing now.
Yeah, I don't know. Having a band was more of just a convenience for me to write songs and have the band, perform them. I would always butt heads up against, my bandmates. Not you, Brian, of course, but it's funny because
but we did.
As far as collaborating,
there's video evidence. The infamous store cable telethon.
Yeah. In the comical slapstick manner, not.
You're not playing somebody.
But you're actually one of the only songwriter that I've wrote songs with, and that was back in our teenage years. Yeah. So since then, I always wrote on my own. I never was one to really be part of a democracy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just feel that I like to write the songs, perform them the way I want to perform them. I know that's that might be considered, well, why don't you want other people to contribute? But being in bands, that was kind of the common theme, common thread for me. So I figured, why have a band when I could just do it myself? Also, I wanted to kind of get back more into songwriting in more of a classical sense. So I guess back since the early 2000s, I was really digging into Bob Dylan's back catalog, Hank Williams' catalog, Townes Van Zandt, some of the classic songwriters, folk country vein. So kind of just stemmed from that, really.
Cool. And interesting, even though your sound became more stripped down when you started, and I did the thing that I told you about. I forgot to switch the camera, but
I actually lost the video feed for you guys.
Oh, okay.
We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here.
You can see me?
We can see you fine.
We can see you. Everything's running smoothly on our end except for the camera operator, which is me.
All right.
So
I'll make sure I don't drift from my current position, even though I can't see myself.
But we've already had enough dead air on this, so it's okay. So even though your sound became more stripped down when you started working on your own, you still are surrounded by technology in terms of your home studio and social media and everything else that's really allowed you to do your own thing.
Yeah, I think it allows everybody really to do their own thing. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that everybody goes and records their own music because you do need time to experiment. You need to hone your craft, not from a songwriting point of view, but more from a engineering side of things. So a lot of people will just get Pro Tools Lite or whatever, Logic or whatever, GarageBand, and record your demo. But a lot of times it just kind of sounds like a demo. So if you really want to go in that direction, if you want to go down that path, you do have to spend some time. It's like the the Outliers 10,000 hours thing. You have to spend a lot of time to really get into it, learn the plugins, learn the program, or just just kind of build cultivate your own sort of craft out of it. So that's what I've been doing for years. Mm-hmm. I started out, but the first recordings I did weren't very good at all. They were pretty inferior when you compare them to commercial recordings. But over time, they started getting better. I started to experiment more and kind of get the sound that I want out of technology. So I think that's kind of the most important thing, is just instead of technology running you, to leverage it, to get the best sound.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about your recent musical activities. And since I played accordion on the track, I know you have recorded a cover of Yoko Ono's Silver Horse for an upcoming Yoko Ono tribute album that's being released by Main Man Records. How did that come about, and when can we expect to see that release?
I am waiting as patiently as you are, actually. I spoke to Tony Donato. Tony Donato is in a band called Jack Bragg, and he is actually the executive producer of the tribute. I do have a little bit of news. I guess I can divulge the title of it. He said that was okay. If not, Me Man Records is going to pay me a visit. But it's called Cut Pieces, a tribute to Yoko Ono. Apparently, it's going to be a January release date. And according to Tony, the exact release date, they're going to probably say when the actual release date is in the middle of October. That's what it looks like. So again, it's Cut Pieces, a tribute to Yoko Ono. Apparently, there's going to be some surprise guests on here. So it should be a great compilation record. I'm looking forward to it. Our track, I think, came out really well.
Yeah, it did. It's and it's a really what you did with it, from the original is amazing. I've played it for Allison, my wife, for those not familiar with my family situation, and I don't think I played it for John, but
no, I haven't heard it yet. I'm actually really excited to hear this piece. It sounds amazing.
But yeah, it's people have the couple people have listened to it really enjoyed it. So
yeah, especially when the original Yoko's original version, it's unique in its own way. So to kind of put a different spin on it, it's funny because there are several artists who have covered that song. Mm-hmm. Some pretty prominent artists. Paul Simon did a version of it actually with Harper Simon, his son. I'm not sure if there's a recorded version, but it was a live edition. And then Harry Nilsson recorded a version too. Mm-hmm. So I don't think our version was anything like those two. So yeah, I think at the very least it's unique. It's going to be the new definitive version of Silver Horse.
Yes.
So we definitely set the bar for the song. I know there's going to be a million of other artists who want to cover the song, but it was a great time recording it. It was to arrange it in that way, and you did a great job of accordion there. The accordion maestro, Brian Kelley. So
yeah, not exactly, but and you will be performing Silver Horse at a New Jersey Peace Action concert on October 19th. Is that correct?
That's right. At Bloomfield College at the Westminster Theater. It's on October 19th. It's actually looking to be a pretty interesting event. We're going to be pretty much smack dab in the middle of the event. It's from 7 to 11, 7 o'clock p.m. to 11 p.m. I think our performance is somewhere around 9 o'clock, and there's going to be 5 artists who are going to be in the performing for the Yoko Ono segment. So Tony Donato curated a whole Yoko Ono with a kind of event within the event. So looking forward to it. It's definitely sounds pretty cool. There's going to be some dance troupes as well as Japanese drum corps. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I was looking at the
pretty diverse.
Yeah, I was looking at the website for that. I had a link in last week's show notes, I think, and I'll have one in this week's show notes as well. But yeah, it looks really, really amazing. So.
So knowing us, we'll probably have the dance troupe and the Japanese drum corps on stage at the same time.
Yes, and throw in throw in a couple of clowns.
Yeah, exactly. They're more apropos. I think.
We have a couple
of clowns.
Sounds familiar, actually.
That happened to us during the same infamous store cable telethon during the summer of 1989 when we were about to go on, and all of a sudden they changed their minds and went to these 2 clowns that were performing in the lobby, and they're like they're waiting for us they're giving us a signal, and they're like, but first we have a couple of clowns. And Christian's father's like, oh, that's you. Great, it was great. We were kids. What do you want?
Yeah. Hey, you gotta be young and stupid once.
Yeah. But and like I said before, in a way we were ahead of our time. We just were too young to do it correctly.
Yeah. I reflect fondly on those days. It was no pressure. We were just kids. Goofing around, and I guess if we had some sense of direction, and maybe not put a ballad in the same set as a industrial hardcore song, maybe we would have gone a little bit further.
You open with Death Row and close with Time Takes Over.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so getting back to your very excellent music these days.
Thank you.
You know, your first self-titled solo CD came out in 2009, and I've heard a good deal of the material you've written since then. When can we expect the long-awaited follow-up?
Well, I actually, it's almost ready. It's probably going to be 8 or 9 songs. I kind of whittled it down. It's different, I think, from the material that you heard, Brian. Although there's a couple songs that I redid, that I re-recorded for the new one. So when this was I guess a couple years ago. Actually, when my wife was pregnant, I just started writing these songs that were noticeably different from the previous stuff that I was working on, and I just kind of went with it. So I came up with about 8 or 9 songs that I recorded, and so it's going to be a little more in the folk vein. It's a little softer, but interesting, some different sounds that I kind of played around with. So yeah, it's pretty much done, and I should probably have it mixed sometime in the next month or 2.
Cool. Can't wait to hear it.
Christian, did you ever consider doing anything with like a Kickstarter campaign in order to fund or even generate support for your production?
Yeah, I've never looked into it seriously, but I know a lot of people have had some great success with it.
Yeah, it seems like it's an amazing, methodology for generating funds for supporting exactly the kind of work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Christian.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should definitely look into that. Further. Just for the, promote. I mean, as far as the recording part of it, pretty much have that covered. But for getting the music released, of course that takes money. Man, not a whole lot of money these days, but it does take some. But that's something I would definitely consider in the future. A lot of mainstream artists are doing that now, just because there's no such thing as a recording budget anymore.
Actually, it's funny. We're talking about that now. Earlier I talked about Kate Miller-Heidke, who's this Australian singer-songwriter that I became a fan of when she opened for Ben Folds back in 2010, and we saw her in Montclair actually, and she just did a successful, like a 3-day pledgemusic.com campaign. She raised her funds in 3 days for and mostly marketing and those costs. Like you said,
sure.
The recording is one thing. It's the distribution and the marketing is where the money comes from, and mixing and engineering. But what was interesting in the video is, like, after 4 albums on Sony, I'm finally independent, and it struck me that is like the new paradigm. Is artists trying to get away from the labels, and regaining that creative control. Whereas in the old days, people were like, oh, we finally got a record label, no more scraping as an independent, and now the people who are already there are trying. Yeah, and the people who are already there are trying to get away, and trying to
creative control. Not only creative control, but also a much bigger cut of the profits.
Right.
Or nearly all the profits, and the way music is, the way music is marketed, through social media and through iTunes and Spotify. All that's a whole nother story. But the physical product isn't as important anymore.
Right.
Once you get to a certain level, maybe it is, or at least to have some physical CDs. But for the most part, I mean, I find myself downloading most of the music. I do still like to listen to vinyl and collect vinyl when I can. But as far as new music goes, I just downloaded the new another self-portrait from Bob Dylan. I wanted to get the part of the bootleg series. I wanted to get the actual product, but I'm like, I was out in the back by the pool and had my iPhone. I'm like, I need some new music. I'm just going to download it. So I downloaded it, and it was there. So yeah, that's definitely not going away. And it's interesting to see kind of these hybrid approaches where people are putting out vinyl. and also having the the downloadable feature, which is pretty interesting because you can't beat vinyl as a physical medium.
Right.
So there's definitely some interesting new, not new I guess, but interesting marketing ideas coming out from independent artists.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer, and thank you for the interview. It was nice to have a live guest.
It's okay.
We haven't done this before.
I'm home in my basement,
Yep, so am I.
Sitting here in my boxers. Everything is.
Would you care to perform? Are you ready to do that? Are you prepared to do that?
I have a guitar in my hand. I don't know if I'm ready,
okay.
but I do have an instrument in hand.
Okay, that'd be great if you could play something for us.
Yeah, I'll play. This is a song off the new CD that's coming out. It's called Divide and Conquer. I shouldn't have signed my name on the contract. I should have held my breath and never looked back. The scrapes and scars of betrayal are hard to erase. When your best friend smiles when he lies to your face, words don't mean a thing. If I would have known, I would have left it as it were. How was I to know it was divine and conquer? All the well-crafted works in the silo. We worked and tilled the land till it rolled and flowed. You're nothing but a lord, and I, a lowly thief. All the hard-earned compensation that I bequeath. And words don't mean a thing. If I would have known, I would have left it as it were. How was I to know it was divine All the horses are in the stable, except the steed you count on, 'cause he's able. He led us astray even though we knew it was wrong. In our chemical haze of destruction, we're far too gone. And words don't mean a thing. If I would have known, I would have let wanted, as it were. How was I to know it was divine? Child of God.
Excellent. And I actually like that. I love that song. You played that at one of the shows at the Saint.
Yeah.
That I was at.
Yeah, I got that on the recording. There's a couple of cool things that I did in the recorded version. So I'll send it to you shortly.
Cool.
That's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Oh, anytime, John. It's thank you guys for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you. Thank
all
you
ours,
for coming
for
on. And you added a touch of class to this.
A touch of class.
Otherwise classless.
To this nightmare that we experience every week.
Oh, I'm living a nightmare every day, man. It's okay.
All right, excellent. So again, Christian Beach. Go to christianbeach.net. Find out more about him, and there's new music coming from Christian, and we'll have links in the show notes. So, Christian, thanks again for joining us, and try to get some sleep now, and John and I will continue to drive this train wreck into oblivion.
Thank you so much, Christian.
Anytime, guys. Have a good night.
All right, take care, Christian.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So,
well, from a technological standpoint, that was surprisingly smooth.
Yes, that went about as well as it could have gone.
That went about as well as it could have gone. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so why don't we get to our In Focus segment?
Yeah, let's do that. So, it's funny because Christian was talking about the idea of Google Hangouts, and it was his second time in the system, yeah?
Right.
And despite that, he, with probably no special hardware, no special software, as we know, was able to simultaneously broadcast, archive, and video chat. He could have done other things, but for our needs, he was able to do that with essentially one setup session, and I call that amazing. You know, he may have the a limited experience with video conferencing in general, but I don't, and I think that it can be treacherous. It can be truly painful. And I guess I'm biased, and I'm also a little bit calloused because we spend so much time in this system. Yes, it has flaws, but generally speaking, it's pretty straightforward. It's they introduce the new features that they do, but they stay for a while. And there are a lot of features. I can share my screen. You have shared your screen. Mm-hmm. I can put my lower third on and share a website that I'm associated with. I can share a YouTube video. I can take a photo of you if I wanted to. I could do questions and answers, which we haven't actually looked at, but we should. And this is all to say that this is in many ways exceeding some of the other features that are available in other systems, namely Adobe Connect and GoToMeeting. There are other ways to do this work, but the fact that Adobe Connect and GoToMeeting really do not offer anything that exceeds what we get in Google Hangouts is kind of an indicator that there either needs to be a shift, like there needs to be new blood, or there needs to be some advantage to going to Adobe Connect or GoToMeeting, or those services have to compete with a free product. And it's really hard to compete with a free product. I use Adobe Connect in my consulting work because sometimes I'm asked to give a presentation or to do a lecture remotely, right? So I might be connecting with people all over the country or all over the world. And Adobe Connect and GoToMeeting both allow for that. Sometimes with difference in quality, sometimes with difference in capacity, right? Whether or not there are 1,000 people, 500 people, 10 people, 500,000 people, all depends on whether or not that system can support it. Well, with Hangouts, we can essentially support, I think, up to 100,000 people. We will never strain the system, but we could if we wanted to. And there's something to be said there. And I'm always surprised in my presentations on Google products, and of course I'm not affiliated with Google. I don't make any money from Google. I just am a fan. I really like what they do. I'm always surprised when I converse with people and they say, what's YouTube, or I'm sorry, what is Google Plus for? And I'll say, well, if nothing else, it's for Hangouts. It allows a social layer that allows me to connect with other people and video chat and to broadcast and to archive for free using a very popular system in YouTube as a way of archiving and sharing that information. So I would say that they're all capable systems, having used all of them, Adobe Connect, Google Hangouts, and GoToMeeting. But the real shining star here is Hangouts, not only for its features, but also because of its social layer, and it's free. There is no barrier to entry, and these other companies will have a very difficult time continuing to compete with that.
Right.
The other issue I wanted to talk about was gamification. Have we ever talked about gamification on this podcast?
Don't believe so.
So I was at a meeting. I'm a member.
It's probably come up, but I don't think we've talked about it in depth. So.
Okay, well, good on this segment then. So I am a part of the Artworks Trenton Adult Education Committee, and we were having our monthly meeting just the other night, and we were talking about the idea that if somebody, for instance, walks into, we were talking about ways to get more people to go to classes there. They have printmaking classes, drawing classes, and they are not free, but there are benefits to taking those classes. Inherent benefits, intrinsic benefits. You are a part of Artworks, you learn a new skill, if you already have that skill, you get to experience that skill. There's printmaking, for example, where nobody I know has a printing press, but Artworks does. They have several. And the ability to go into that studio, be able to use that press for some time for a price that's reasonable is amazing, because the cost of the press is far exceeding reasonable. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. So we were talking about how to make people aware, how to motivate them to participate, how to get over the fact that there is a cost at all, how to be proud of the work that they do and the participation that they're consigning to, and to make people more aware. And I said, it sounds like the sort of thing that we would benefit from gamification from. And the director, Lynn, said, "What's gamification?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." Gamification is the idea that you apply game theory and game tactics to everyday tasks in order to give people motivation to commit to them. So Foursquare uses gamification. Foursquare says if you check into this place and this place and this place, you will get a badge that indicates that you have some aspect of those 3 places. You know, if you go to 3 delis in a week, you know, you might get the deli monger badge or whatever. If you go to certain clothing stores that are supported and partners with some show, like let's say a daytime show on network television, you might get the NBC Today badge, you know, because you visited these 3 or 5 stores, right? Mm-hmm. And also, there's also the idea that when you check into a place more than anybody else, you get a mayorship. You get a certain recognition that you are particularly associated with this place. I used to fight with people at Ryder in order to become mayor of certain spaces on campus. And it was fun, right? It was like we kept taking that throne back and forth. And I said, we can do the same thing with Artworks. There's a whole bunch of places in Trenton and in Mercer that are associated with Artworks that are not Artworks, like the Grounds for Sculpture and Jerry's Artorama on Route 1. And there's a studio just off 7A, and there's Trenton Social, which is a restaurant that is strongly associated with the arts movement in Trenton. And all these places could have check-ins that would allow you to associate with Artworks. But Artworks itself would benefit from being able to gamify their various events. They probably have 14 events in a year, some that are larger, like Art All Night and Art All Day and Monsters Ball, some that are much smaller, like the shows that they have in Artworks itself, and some that are smaller yet, like the classes that they have for printmaking, etc. And I said, we could give people badges for each of these things, and if they accumulate enough badges, they could benefit monetarily, or they could benefit from being able to attend a specific party, or they could, it would be completely free, it would be, you know, open bar, whatever. So it's one of these things where using simply technology and being able to sort of offset the costs, offset the price of being able to reward people, it's a no-brainer. It's exactly what you would want to do. It could be as simple as somebody signs up for Artworks membership and it requires a donation of, let's say, $25. You can give more, but you must give at least $25 or whatever. As a result, you might get a coupon that allows you to go to Trenton Social and to get a meal, which would recoup most of the cost of your membership. So you would get the benefit of the membership as well as the benefit of a free meal. Not that any of that is specifically happening. We're still working out the carrot and sticks, but it's a reasonable idea. It's not a new idea, but it's new in that we are using WordPress and BuddyPress in order to implement gamification. And we're also implementing possibly passbooks, where in the same way that you would go to a national park and you would get your book stamped to show that you were at that national park, which has intrinsic value in itself, we also benefit from these other things that we're talking about, these monetary benefits. If you achieve 3 stamps, then you might also achieve, a free meal. So there are some people who are perfectly willing to participate in the digital aspect of it, but there are some people who won't for whatever reason. They don't have a phone, they don't have a computer, whatever. But with the passbook, we also have the opportunity to create art with these stamps and to make them unique and to make them authentication methodologies for people. Somebody might say at some location like Jerry's Artorama, let me see your passbook, you might get a 10% discount, So this is, I think, a very exciting idea that we just stumbled upon in conversation, and I'm excited about the possibilities for it.
Sounds cool.
How about you?
I just have a couple things to talk about, and not really in depth, because one I only found out about today, and I'm still actually just going through it. But I saw an article on CNN about this Seaboard keyboard, and Seaboard is Seaboard. And let me get a screen share up. Yep, it's that time again. Do a screen share. Hold on. All right. So do you see that?
I do.
All right. So this is the Seaboard from a weird angle, but as you can see, it's kind of like a rubbery representation of a traditional piano keyboard. You can see, 2 black keys, 3 black keys, that same pattern, and you have these, but there are sensors underneath where, rather than just having keys that just go up and down and having pedals that kind of manipulate the sound to some extent, it gives you some control over the expressiveness. You can do kind of like pitch bends and velocity shifts with the keys, and sliding them up and down, and applying different types of pressure. And there's a video that shows, not on this page, but that shows what it does. And I'm not going to try to do it now, but I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But I saw on the CNN story, they had Hans Zimmer, the noted film composer, playing with it, and it was at the company's, the company brought him in, and they sat him down at this, instrument, and he was, fairly impressed with it. And the one thing he liked was the touch, that it was, even though it doesn't look like it is, he said it was, familiar with the piano and with traditional keyboards, even though it, it's clearly different. So it's just something to look at. It's actually, it has its own sound engine, but it also can be a MIDI controller as well, controlling external sound sources. So that is the Seaboard keyboard, and it's from a company called Roli, R-O-L-I. So I'll put a link to that company in the show notes as well. And the other thing, and we've talked about Google Glass a number of times, and mostly you have talked about Google Glass, and you're more enthusiastic about it than I am, because I think there's a lot of underlying issues that Google isn't really paying attention to.
Let's talk about those.
Well, yeah, it was, the
glass in the bathroom issue,
the liability of people using it while driving, or privacy, because that's the other thing too. I mean,
But
we've been talking about
this
privacy.
is what I don't understand.
Well, here's the thing, though. We've been talking about privacy in the NSA. I mean, once Google Glass goes mainstream, the NSA, what aren't they going to have? I mean, they will be able to.
What don't they?
Like,
what don't they have now?
real-time.
This is what I'm saying. It's an
Exactly,
innovation in placement. It's not an innovation in technology. It's an innovation in integration with your phone. It's not an integration. It's not an innovation in technology. There's nothing new about this device, except for the placement of it on your head.
Right, but
that is it.
Well, I mean, there is the possibility that the NSA could develop the, technical know-how to basically see what you are seeing.
But they already, if that is the case, why didn't they already develop the technology to hear what I'm hearing, to see what my camera sees? And in fact, they probably have. Well, if they want to turn on my camera, they probably can.
Well, fortunately, in about 44 minutes, the government's going to shut down anyway, and there will be no more.
Yeah, well, it's much ado about nothing, really, because they can't even keep themselves open. But
right. But anyway, here is a story I saw on the Boston Globe website that talks about the benefits of Google Glass. I have so many problems saying Google Glass.
Just call it Glass.
Yes, but okay. So there we are. So this is a surgeon who he got one of the $1,500 prototypes, I guess, the 8,000 that were released. He got one of them.
Yep.
And he's been experimenting with using it in terms of operating. He's a trauma surgeon, Raphael Grossman at Maine Medical Center, and here's in the story it says the surgeon recorded a procedure using Google Glass, the wearable computer and video camera mounted on a pair of lightweight eyeglass frames. Many medical professionals, including Grossman, say they believe it'll have far-reaching implications for the healthcare industry. And basically, what they're talking about is any like say a burn victim goes to a rural hospital and they contact an intermediate hospital like Maine Medical Center and says, this is what I'm dealing with, and the doctor can show in real time somebody at a different location with more experience with that type of burn. They can see what they're dealing with. They can prescribe, okay, you can do this here, or they can make the call, okay, transport them to our facility or send them to Boston. It's going to be more cost effective because instead of a local hospital sending somebody via helicopter to another facility, which may be unnecessary, you're going to save that cost, and doctors will be able to guide other surgeons, wearing Google Glass, hands-free, voice controlled, and be able to, kind of navigate remotely as people, go in with cameras and do certain procedures. So it's, reading this article, this is the promise of Google. This is the promise of Google Glass. And in the hands of responsible people, and I guess you could say that about a lot of things, but it's in the hands of responsible people. That is what we should focus on. Yeah, it is a miraculous, in this context, it's a miraculous, advancement.
Meanwhile, they could do this now. Yes.
Yes, but they say,
in the same way that I could take my phone into a bathroom and take pictures now.
Well, they say, they use their phones, they use their iPads now, but the problem with that is that it's not hands-free. It's not
exactly right. It's not that is the innovation. That is the innovation.
Right. It's not a point of view aspect to it, and surgeons, if they're using their phones, they have to constantly scrub after that.
Well, my only negative reaction to the idea, though, is that people have this negative reaction to this innovation in hardware, which is actually far more obvious than alternative methods that could do exactly the same thing. I mean, I could put a pinpoint camera in my sleeve. You know what I mean? There's no there are benefits to being able to wear glass and being able to navigate, etc. But the idea of having a camera on my head being the privacy concern is absolutely ridiculous. It's the opposite of hiding in plain sight. It's hiding on the front of your face.
Well, that actually, speaking of privacy, that is one of the concerns that's brought up in what could hinder glass from becoming standard in operating rooms.
Because of HIPAA.
Because of, HIPAA.
Yeah, but again,
which is the health insurance portability and accountability.
The same rules apply to phones.
Right.
Which we should stop calling phones because they're not phones anymore.
Right. They're handheld computers.
They're computers.
They're handheld internet devices.
They are sensors. They're a collection of sensors. And this is, again, going back to Robert Scoble, we have not recognized that shift yet. We still think of this slab of glass as a phone.
Which is ironic. Which is ironic since hardly anybody uses their phone to make calls anymore.
Well, I mean, I still use my phone to make calls, but I also use it to text. I also use it to take photos. I also use it to listen to music. I also listen to get the news. I also listen to it to listen to our podcast. I also use it to read websites. I use it for everything. It's more appropriate to call it a jukebox, but that's such an outdated idea too. That we need a new language, or at the very least a new term, to describe this. It's more than a computer too. It's
right.
It is a computer, but even computer is a very outdated way of describing what it is that this does. It's a multifaceted sensor. That's what it is. It doesn't sound very sexy, but it's a multifaceted sensor. It's a collection device.
Yeah. No, you are correct. I mean, maybe it is time to redefine and rebrand, smartphone, because that's, that doesn't really, capture what it is.
No, it's such a limited way of thinking about what it does. What it does is, it's a convergence device. It is the ultimate in convergence, and the idea that everything comes to us and we go out to everything. When we interact on Facebook, we're going out to, in my case, 1,400 people or 1,100 people, and when things come to me, they're coming from all different sources. They're coming from those social networks. They're coming from my email. They're coming from a phone. And they're allowing me to convey my communication in multiple channels, over text, over video, over audio, over emoticons. There are lots of ways that incoming and outgoing messages on these devices are so limited by thinking of them as phones.
Right. And we kind of strayed from what the point of the article was, but no.
Yes and no.
Yeah,
yes
no, I agree. I was going to go there. I mean, it is connected, and it's a much broader area that we've gone into, but it's an interesting topic nonetheless, and maybe something we should look at, for more in-depth discussion.
Absolutely,
in one of our final two technology in the arts episodes for the fall 2013. That's tonight.
Amazing. It's gone by really
went by
quick.
Just like that, even though one episode apparently lasts like 2 months.
I think it's this one.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go, did you get to see the Breaking Bad finale yet?
I did.
You did. Okay.
I did. I
All right.
was I was very pleased. I I guess it could have ended in different ways. One of the things that was really great about the show was they attended to all of the loose ends.
Right.
They did it in a very classy way. I was not dissatisfied by the way that any of the characters ended up or down, as it might be. It had explosiveness. It had surprise. It had twists. You know, we were led to believe in a previous episode that that Walt. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers, but we were led down roads the entire time, and everything ended up maybe perfectly as it should. It really and it offers great opportunity for the spinoff that focuses on Saul.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely offers opportunities for Saul, and other characters who survived the show. Did you watch the finale?
I watched most of it. I have to go back and watch a few scenes that I missed, but I did see the ending.
I'm wondering if we can be a little bit spoilery.
I think we can. Enough people have if Breaking Bad fans and whoever is possibly watching at this point, we're gonna go into spoilers at this point. So you might wanna shut us off if you haven't done so already.
So the one thing, this is not too spoilery. I mean, it's a small thing, but I thought it was grand in the way that it was executed. Skylar gets a phone call from Marie, and she's talking on the phone with Marie, and Marie is expressing her fear for Skylar that she's going to be encountered by Walt, because Walt's in town. He's been showing up, and he's been, there's all these rumors swirling, and we are looking at her in her tiny little studio apartment. Reminds me a bit of mine. And she hangs up the phone. And meanwhile, the whole time we've been looking at the entire space. As a matter of fact, I used a wide-angle lens because there was curvature in the movement in the room. And the one thing that's sort of odd is in the middle of the room there is a central pole. And it turns out that Walt is behind that central pole. Do you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And there's such a beauty in that, this sort of hiddenness. And also the scene that takes place with Lydia, which incidentally I didn't remember that her name was Lydia, but now I will never forget. Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know that her name is Lydia?
No, I mean I haven't. I've only started watching like the last few episodes, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up. I watched a few from the beginning, and I've watched a few at the end, and I have to watch it in between. I'm not a big person that gets attracted by knowing what
I'm
happens.
a huge fan of the show.
I know. I just never got around to it.
So anyway, the guy who played Landry in Friday Night Lights,
right,
who is Todd in the series, he has sort of a crush on Lydia. And one little funny scene is that Walt gets a hold of his phone at a particularly dramatic moment, and he knows that it's Lydia calling because of the Groucho Mark's song about Lydia, the tattooed lady.
Right.
So that's his ring. That's Todd's ringtone for Lydia is this thing. And so it's funny. I wish they had done that earlier because I didn't really think of her as a full-fledged character, and now like she's identified. You know, I don't know. There's so many little moments like that, especially in the last episode, but throughout the entire. And there are more dramatic ones, more big moments, and more small moments brought together to just make a fabulous ending to perhaps the best show ever made. It really was great. Congratulations to everybody involved. It was such a great series.
Yeah, it was definitely a really, really well done finale, and yeah, I agree. It was all
and appropriate
involved.
for our show too. I mean, there's a lot of technology and a lot of art in that show.
The art of meth making.
Well, I mean, you say that jokingly, but of course, Walt treated it like an art.
Yes, no, and in that final scene, you know, it you can see how much he cared about it.
And it turns out from that final scene, it seems like that was the most important thing. And it was a mirror, right?
Right.
It was a mirror, and how well does that reflect? Again, without trying to spoil anything, how well does that reflect his point of view?
Right.
No pun intended.
All right. So let's I guess wrap this up. Unless you have anything else to add.
You actually look like you're starting to fall asleep.
I'm telling you, it's just because the way my contacts are. My contacts, because remember, I have the
has
weird...
nothing to do that we're in hour like 2, right?
No, well, yeah, but the thing with my contacts, and we've talked about this years ago, but you know, I have a condition on with my eyes. My eyes are fine.
You have a condition for sure.
It's keratoconus. It means cone-shaped corneas. My corneas. My left one even more so than my right one, but they're cone-shaped.
Do you have an issue with your eyelids too?
Well, no, but because I have these hard contact lenses, they're very, what is it, concave, I guess. But you know, so the lenses are designed to shape the lens, and especially my left lens kind of protrudes a little bit. It's not very smooth against my eye, so my left eye will get stuck on it. My eyelid will get stuck on that lens a lot. So unless I'm really like aware of it and opening my eye, it'll just like kind of sit like this.
You need some drops. That's what you.
I have them, but you know I don't want to keep putting them in, and
because honestly, you look like you're asleep right now.
Then it's gonna look like I'm crying, which sometimes I am when I'm doing this show.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Brian.
I gotta talk to John again. An hour and a half of this blowhard.
What can I say, man? I know how to blow.
Oh, that might make an appearance in the Vine cut.
Please don't. I already have a reputation from your last Vine cut. Apparently, I'm obsessed with large microphones. All right. Well, this concludes the episode. This episode of Technology in the Arts.
Let the expert get it.
Oh God. Get Christian back on.
Yeah, we need a third person. Let's wrap this up. Well, that concludes this episode of Technology in the Arts. Thank you for watching, and remember to visit us at technologyinthearts.com. Visit us on Facebook or at Google+. Follow us on Twitter at tech_arts. Watch us on our YouTube channel, or look for our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. We hope you'll join us again next week when we return. For Technology in the Arts, this is Brian Kelley.
And this is John Lemesney. Take care.
Actually, before you go,
yeah,
also want to thank Christian Beach one more time.
Oh, absolutely. Christian was fantastic. He's a professional. He did a beautiful thing for us, and it was a pleasure to meet him like this. I can't wait to meet him in person.
Excellent. So, okay, thanks again to Christian Beach, christianbeach.net, and good night, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.